Now, there were three things that unfolded during the hearings yesterday that I thought were pertinent, that it seemed like this was the angle that the Republicans were trying to take. The role of Chris Stevens, the ambassador, it seemed, and it was described as almost that of a James Bond role, that I got the impression that he went into Libya knowing that there was going to be minimal security. He was going to be the boots on the ground to go into the country and find out what the heck is going on, find out who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, who the United States and allies could count on to get a successful conclusion, and don't create too much of a presence. That was the mission, it seemed to me. The other issue was the fog of war. What happened on the night? How did it happen? Who communicated with who, and why weren't certain things done? And I think that was answered very, very well. Then there's the Sidney Blumenthal connection. There seems to be an incredible fascination about Sidney Blumenthal with these people on the board, that there's no way that Hillary Clinton could have any friends whatsoever that would feed her any information at all about the cost of milk or anything else in the country of Libya. And they made him out to be like he was some kind of special envoy that the White House didn't know anything about, and he was some kind of top secret agent. For more on this, let's turn to Joe Sestak. Admiral Joe Sestak worked in naval intelligence and is running for Senate in the state of Pennsylvania. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Ed. Thank you.
Let's talk about Stevens' role. From the hearings yesterday and the information that came out, what's your take on it?
Well, as far as the ambassador, first of all, he's a real hero. And I think it's very indicative of his desire to actually do what you just mentioned. He really did care to understand what's going on, to discern what's happening in what was a very hot spot for us right there. I mean, this was an extraordinarily important moment because we had intervened here, and Gaddafi was gone, and turbulence was happening. And he wanted, in my opinion, to truly be there, understand it, get the first-hand account, and report back. My take is that, without a question, this was somebody who was going about his job as we would like people to go about their job. And unfortunately, this tragedy occurred.
I'm going to take it a step further, Joe, in that, there's obviously adversaries on the ground. There's enemies on the ground in Libya. There were anti-American interests on the ground. There's a real possibility that someone might have figured out who Chris Stevens was and targeted him for the attack, knowing that he was out there doing the due diligence of the United States and somewhat of an agent on the ground trying to figure out what was going on. I mean, we don't know, do we? We just don't know. And then there were security requests. This seemed to be a real hot topic with the Republicans yesterday, the number of requests for security, which at the end of the day, it sounds like that's a pretty normal procedure for every one of these embassies around the world.
Without a question. Look, it's also what we do in the military. We are always asking for more to make sure that we can do the best. I'll never forget when General Powell, for example, was asked, why did you go into Panama when he did that intervention down there with 20,000 troops? He said, that's all I could get in there in the time I had to do something. Yes, we want the best of the best out there, but the important issue really is the fog of war. And that also goes to intelligence. When I worked in the National Security Council and watched the intelligence flow go to the President of the United States, I remember commenting to somebody, there's no one-armed intelligence officers, because they always seem to say, on the one hand, but on the other hand. And that fog of war, I'll never forget Admiral Krause saying, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the first word from those on the ground will almost assuredly be wrong because of the fog of war.
Admiral, is there anything from your intelligence experience in the Navy of 30 years, is there anything about this that really bothers you from an operational standpoint? We can Monday morning quarterback anything, but it just seems like after 11 hours of watching this yesterday, there's no there. We didn't find out anything before that we didn't know before.
I have absolutely no problem. And when they had the Accountability Review Board, thought it was absolutely spot on to have transparency, investigations, to find out in that great dictum I learned in the Navy, expect what you inspect. And the inspection to find out, are there lessons learned that we can apply not to have it happen again, is absolutely critical. But I think at this moment, with the 7th or 8th investigation, and the way that the majority leader, McCarthy, said, well, this was something that would take Hillary Clinton down, that this has gone beyond the pale into politics. No, I don't think that anything, as the committee head said when confronted by reporters afterwards, anything new was learned. And as far as what occurred that night, my gosh, there are things we know with better security we might have had. There are things that the House and the Senate did not pass at the request of the Senate Department of Better Security. Fingers should be blamed to everyone that lives were lost. But that said, we have lessons we have learned from now, and let's apply them to the future. I think yesterday should close this out for us, and we move forward.
Okay. So, and finally, Admiral, the politics of all of this. Hillary Clinton a winner yesterday?
I think Hillary Clinton showed the heft of having been a public servant overseas for the United States that would bode her so well and us Americans as President of the United States of America. She was formidable, as we want the Commander-in-Chief in the White House to have our back. And I think she displayed that yesterday.
Joe Sestak, Admiral Joe Sestak, running for Senate in Pennsylvania. Let me ask you how your race is going before we let you go here today. How is the race in Pennsylvania?
We think the ship is headed fair. And
you got the wind at your back and you're on top of the waves. I like it.
I head up to Bloomsburg University here shortly after we talk. I'll be talking about education and with proposals from my book, Walking in Your Shoes to Restore the American Dream, how to get the cost of education, tuition under control. And then I'll walk 12 miles to speak at a dinner that evening to the Columbia County Democrats. I am insistent that the greatest thing we can do as public servants is walk in the shoes of those we want to serve.
Joe Sestak, always a pleasure. Great to have you with us.
Great
Best
to be
of luck
with
to you. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.